Most of the stereotypes you see out in the world about any group of people are earned in some kind of way, especially if it's big enough. If the stereotype is big enough, it's typically earned. That's just the reality of it. I'm all about being objective. I'm not saying anybody did anything wrong. I think it's all just fun and games and good information. If you got upset and loud about that because somebody made a joke of, at the expense of black women, that just means you soft. I spell it S-O-F-T. I'm a man and I called you soft.
Trev lighten up.
Soft. But anyways, and this show is about critical thinking. It's not a show of me just over here blabbering and saying things, expressing my opinion. It's about critical thinking and logic. It's about ethos as well as the logos. Being ethical, being fair, thinking about other people.
Previously on Vulcan Soapbox.
We got next, Enos.
Get yourself in position to where you do have to make a stand. You have to make a decision of how you're going to behave, whether it be on your show or somebody else's. James Duncan and Fahad Duwanu, who have a very popular podcast in the UK, and it does like relationships, they read tweets and about stories. They were sitting with Andrew Schultz, and they started talking about the black woman effect. And they were mostly talking about like in the Travis Kelce case, right? The fade, the beard, stuff like that. And Andrew Schultz said it's a defense mechanism. And he said, because you might get beat. And he also said that some of what they did was in protection because they were always complaining. And the other two, the two black men just sat and laughed. I think they've taken a lot of backlash for that. Obviously, Andrew Schultz had taken backlash for it. What are your thoughts on being in that sort of situation and how to handle it?
I would first say, I've dabbled in the comedic side of things, and you push the envelope with that. But with that, I don't know how y'all feel. I've never heard of the black woman effect because that's all I've dated. So I don't know if there's a white woman effect, Indian woman effect, Asian woman effect, but to speak on black woman like that, that's all I was raised around. That's all I've ever done. That's all I know. That's all all I've been married to. Obviously, only been married once. But there are certain things you can't do. And so with Schultz, it doesn't have to be combative and fighting and getting them back and crazy. But I think those dudes should have pushed back. I think maybe that culture, the European black dude culture, might be different than ours. But when I did see it, it upset me because the whole thing about, argumentative black women and all this stuff, I think it's a stigma that people put on black women, put on my black sisters, put on my wife, put on my black family members that I don't like.
Right.
I like a strong woman. If some dudes can't deal with a strong woman and they say that's argumentative or combative, then go get you a weak woman, go get you a do-girl. But that's what I'm saying. If you're saying that, I'll push back and say, you don't want a strong woman. You don't want somebody that can run things. You want somebody that can push back. You want somebody that's opinionated. You just want a yes woman. And I can't deal with nobody with a West woman. So I do think it was cultural when I saw it and saw them European dudes. I think they're built different than American black dudes are. And I don't know how y'all feel about it. And I do think I feel a certain way about them disrespecting the black women that I love and that I know.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you, Chan. I just want to say, I believe those guys were just happy to be in that moment. Andrew Schultz, maybe in their eyes, is a big get, right? We've had some huge people or guests on our show that we still challenge them. Like we still ask them questions. I believe when he made a reference to black women, I don't think he should have been in a position to say that. I'm usually a fan of Andrew of Schultz. I mean, I think I like his comedy style. He's usually pretty creative. I think in that particular moment, he shouldn't have spoke on another race in that manner, right? There's some truth in comedy. I think a lot of comedians hide behind what they really feel and want to say and chop it up as a joke. In this particular instance, it's not a joke. Like, we take that serious. There have been plenty of times where RC said, hey, we have to protect black women. I want to protect all women, but certainly because I was raised by a black woman and I know their plight. I know that they're a devil minority for a reason. Like the challenges that they face and the stuff that they've gone through, not simply just from society, but being the highest percentage of a single parent. The black women, they go through hell. And we have to find the best means of protecting them. And that's even in this particular moment, speaking to a comedian as Andrew Schultz, who, again, I thought was a dope comedian, right? I like his creativity and comedy, but don't say that, man. You can't do that. Don't do our women like that. Like, if it's going to be done, let the women do it. Let them say they're tough and let them say they hold their men accountable. There's not necessarily a place for you to turn that into a joke. That's my 2 cents on it. I don't want to dive deeper into it, but it's just bad timing for you. And hopefully it's only a joke and we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I think the first thing is, when you think about the two podcasters from the UK, is we don't know if the black experience there is the same as the black experience for African Americans or black people that grew up in America. I'm sure to be on this media tour in the US and to sit with Andrew Schultz was a big thing for them. I don't care if it was a big thing. And in addressing Andrew Schultz, who I do think is funny, who sits with Charlemagne and has some of these discussions about the culture, I believe he got too comfortable. So I'd like to explain some things to him. I want to explain to him the black experience, the black woman experience from my point of view. It was watching my mother start from a bank teller and work her way up for decades to run her own collateral department, only to be mistreated when the bank was sold to another bank, and be so sick on Sunday that I finally had to say, hey, mom, you're old enough to retire. It was to see her go to that same job 8 to 5, to be treated anyway that she had to be treated because she only had a high school diploma, and then find ways to not only feed me, but do homework with me and my brother, take us to practice because my dad worked 3 jobs. That was the first Black woman experience that I had. Right. The second Black woman experience I had is marrying a Black woman and watching her sleep on my cot as doctors try to figure out why I'm 140 pounds and I'm a 30-year-old man who was 205 pounds a month before that. Her telling me months after that she would just go in the bathroom and cry every night in the hospital because she didn't want me to worry about her because I was so sick. Right. For her to hold my family together so I could be in the household with my children when I was doing things and I wasn't shit. That's the Black woman experience. The Black woman experience is Black women caring so much about the nuclear Black family, Black women taking care of young Black men to teach them how to be leaders, to teach them how to be strong, to teach them how to care about their God, about their family, and it's about their communities, and to raise their young Black women to be independent enough to take care of themselves, but to understand how to support a family, how to support a man, while also understanding how to get it on your own. That's the Black woman experience that I know. The reason that Black women are tough is because when you're mistreated in the way that Black women are, if you're not tough, you just die off, you don't survive. That's the Black woman experience. And the other piece of it is too, is something that I've learned, and I learned it from Black women, is people feel so comfortable disrespecting them because we don't respect them publicly, right? White people for so long have used the excuse, why can't I say the N word when you say that to yourselves or call yourself that or use that in your music, which is bullshit, right? Or white people have said, if you're using the B word, or they say, if you're using the B word, why can't I call them that? That's bullshit as well, right? That's excuses to be certain things and be disrespectful when you shouldn't be. So when you're sitting across from Andrew Schultz and he's talking about an experience that he can't understand because his wife is not Black, you don't have the right to talk about it. You don't have the right to speak on something that you don't know, right? And to make a joke about what the experience is one thing if you're talking about haircuts and you're talking about clothing and you're talking about beards, or you're comparing what our friend Travis Kelce looked like when he was with Kayla Nicole to what he looks like now that he's with Taylor Swift, right? That is part of it. You start to assimilate to the people around you. What you're not going to do, though, is be disrespectful and say you have to develop a defense mechanism because of alleged violence. Black women aren't violent. Black women don't just walk around to beat people or to be angry or to be treated a certain way. No. Black women, to me, were the entire front line of the Alton Sterling protest when he died, when he was killed by cops in Louisiana. Black women are on the front lines of everything that's about us. Black women understood that they had to take a back seat because as we were fighting for rights in our country, that we as men were going to be able to get through the door before they were. So they decided to push us forward and give us ideas and give us help and give us support and be our biggest cheerleaders because they knew we'll have an opportunity to get in the door first. The problem is so many times now we're getting in those doors and we aren't reaching back and bringing them through that same door with us. And this is just another example of that. So whoever is Andrew Schultz's Black friend, Charlemagne, you're his Black friend, sit him down, talk to him, tell him what the Black woman experience truly is, because he ain't married to one and he's obviously never been around enough of them to know how strong, how beautiful, how independent they can be while also being supportive, how much Black women have done to create this entire world that we all live in and the way that they've poured in. I'd rather be upset, but I know if I'm upset and I'm loud, that just plays into the same angry Black woman trope to the Black man trope that he wants us to depict. And I refuse to give him that joy.
Trying to see where I started right here. So I think so. It's the video starts off. So before I'm gonna let the audience know where we at right now, before we get back into it. So where we're at right now is you have the Pivot show is addressing Andrew Schultz making a joke. So let me just start from the context. There's guys on the Andrew Schultz podcast. They're talking about the black girl effect, black girl magic, whatever they said, that Black women take men who are non-Black and up their fashion game, their look game, how they do their beard, the artificial hairlines, the fades, how the clothes, how they, all those kind of things. And they take them to the next level and make them look real good.
The other culture.
Yeah, so you'll see a guy who's had a Black girlfriend, all of a sudden he's got buzz cut, clean shape up.
Glows up, bro.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that.
They shave their hair because they start losing it. Because they're so stressed being around this Black girl complaining all the time. That's why they got to shave their hair.
Nah, bro. White guys with Black girlfriends,
they grow a beard because there's more cushion when they get slapped.
That's hilarious.
So when Travis Kelce was with the other girl, the Black girl, he was dressing sharp, looking good. He's with Taylor Swift now. He's fell off. I personally think he looks like Jim Carrey from Me, Myself, and Irene.
Bruh.
But again, that's my opinion. And even if that's true, to say one look is better than the other is going to be subjective, depending upon what type of style you like. But anyways, so they make the comment about black girls making men, men that are non-black look better. Andrew and the guys on the show are speaking favorably about black women. Andrew Schultz says, no, they're doing that because they got that beard because they didn't want to get hit and this, that, and the other. So he mismatches it. They said something really good. They said something really bad. He says he makes a joke at black women's expense. Pivot is addressing what he said. And the guys end up apologizing who were on this show. These guys are addressing what was said. So they're attacking Schultz. Before I want to get to that part right there about them attacking Schultz, I just want to say back to the mismatching thing. They said something nice, Andrew said something bad. Whenever a different group of guys was on Andrew Schultz's podcast, they were saying things that we can say is bad about black women. So what did Andrew Schultz and his team do? Said something good. They defended black women on that show. Again, the common psychological aspect of being human, people tend to mismatch. I had a homeboy. I told him, hey, look, this movie was fire. I just got done watching this movie. This movie was fire. You got to see this movie. He'd be like, man, you probably hyping it. He goes see the movie. He'd be like, it was good, but you hyped it. If I see a movie, man, that movie was trash. Never want to see that movie again. He'll see the movie. Be like, he was tripping, man. That movie was good. So I had to start changing how I brought it up to him if I wanted to see the movie. If I saw the movie, like, well, how was it? You check it out for yourself, man. I mean, I think it might have been cool. I'm still not sure about it. I got to go see it. If I thought the movie was bad, I'd be like, I don't know, man. You just got to see it for yourself. I put a look on my face. Like, I don't know, man. You got to see it for yourself. And then he'll watch it. But that movie was terrible. He's a mismatcher. Didn't mean nothing bad by it. He's just a mismatcher. Those of us in sales, you learn. Some customers are mismatch. You say this is great, that's your opinion. You say that looked bad. I've seen worse. That's human psychology. A certain percentage of the population is going to do that, especially if you're making yourself saying, I'm the greatest, I'm the best. Yeah, all right, you was cool. Somebody talking about playing basketball. Oh, I was the coldest. You ain't wasn't in the league. You just said I was all right. No, he's actually pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, man. He's pretty good. That's just human nature. Right, wrong, or indifferent, that's human nature. So if you're gonna put yourself out there, the black girl effect, black girl magic, whatever it is, somebody's gonna be like, that ain't magic. That's voodoo. That's hoodoo. That's what they're gonna do. Getting into what these guys said right here, the audience. So we got on the Pivot show. They're talking about giving pushback against Schultz. And he said, this is a stigma being imposed on black women. This, black women being violent, black women being verbally assaulting, or black women being very contentious verbally. A stigma that's being imposed on them. That's what he said. It's not true. It's not being imposed on them. It's a stereotype. Like all stereotype, there's some truth to it. It doesn't mean it's true for every single individual. Perhaps it could be more true in one particular culture, another culture. If you line up all the cultures in the world, from emo culture to subcultures, all the different kind of cultures you could imagine, they're not going to be equal in every way. Some are going to be more competitive. Some are going to be smarter. Not because they're genetically smarter, but because they value smarts more than the other group. I've never seen the movie Divergent and all those movies where they broke people up into the brights and all other groups. They had a certain focus. They got better at those things. Some cultures care more about cooking. Some cultures care more about studying. Some cultures care more about dance. They're going to be gifted in those areas at a higher rate. Not that other cultures don't have it, but they may be comparatively deficient or relatively deficient comparatively. That's okay. It's just fine. So you got to understand these are the different dynamics that we're working with as social beings, being with other people. That being the case, if you in your media, depict yourself as being more violent, being more contentious, people might identify you that way. Look at our music. Look at our music videos. If you were to get a country songs, rock songs, bluegrass songs, blues, jazz, hip hop, and you just were to play 10 songs at random in every group and write down the contents of those songs, which one's going to have the most violence in it? Is it even close? Does that make every single song in that genre violent? Of course not. It just means on average they're a little bit more violent than other ones. Not all violence is bad. A lot of the violence we do see in hip-hop music is bad. Not all of it. Some of it's self-defense. So you got to understand this. We got to be objective about this. You can't have confirmation bias, which is, well, I'm going to have a bias towards what I want to believe is what's going on. So I'm going to look for things that confirm what I already want to believe. Anything that disconfirms what I believe, I'm going to disregard that. That's alternative facts. No, you can't do that. So the stigma imposed on Black women, though, most of the stereotypes you see out in the world about any group of people are earned in some kind of way, especially if it's big enough. If the stereotype is big enough, it's typically earned. That's just the reality of it. Now, opinionated, strong women. So the guy was talking about, the light-skinned dude with the braids is saying, you know, Black women are strong and opinionated. And another guy later on said, ask our women if they're tough. So one guy's calling Black women strong. The other guy says, well, you calling our women tough, ask them if they're tough. Well, check if you wanted those guys to not laugh at Andrew Schultz's joke and to check Andrew Schultz and defend Black women, why you didn't do it just now with your own homeboy in your own show? He just called Black women strong. You just ask Black women if they're tough. Tough is synonymous with strong. The hypocrisy is already taking place. Your boy just said strong. You said ask them if they're tough. So you can't expect those guys to correct Andrew Schultz for making a joke about Black women. You're not even correcting your homeboy that you do a show with every single week. That's a stranger they're dealing with. You're dealing with somebody you talk to every day and make jokes with and match wits with every single day. And you didn't correct him. Where's the fairness in that? I'm all about being objective. I'm not saying anybody did anything wrong. I think it's all just fun and games and good information. But we got to call a spade a spade. So he's talking about being opinionated. Nothing wrong with a woman being opinionated, a man being opinionated. Again, we're speaking loosely. I'm not faulting them. I'm going to nitpick their words here, but I'm not faulting them for their words necessarily. People speak loosely. But any men typically don't have a problem with women being opinionated. It's how you go about displaying that opinion, how you go about conducting yourself in the conversation with the difference of opinions. I can be conversing with somebody that I completely disagree with and even find their opinion somewhat offensive. They may never know it unless I choose to display it while I'm expressing my disagreements with them. Well, you said over here, this right here, I really don't think that makes sense given blah, 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 blah. Your premises right here was this. This is your premise, and then later on, this is your conclusion. These two, that's not a valid form of argumentation right there. I can express a difference of opinion without being contentious with somebody. That's what people's problem is. If we disagree, let's have a mature conversation about it. Let's stick to the topic. Let's not assume that we're right in the conversation. Obviously, I know you believe it or you wouldn't be arguing with me. But just because you believe it strongly and your resolve is on 10 doesn't absolve you from having to explain it to me to where I can understand it. Yes, you're going to have to explain. If you know something, knowledge, to know is justified, true belief. Belief because it's an idea. That's what that part means. True meaning you can't know something that's not true. I can't know that Barack Obama was the first president because it didn't happen. I can believe that. I can think that. I can't know that. And then justify. Remember in math class you had to show your work? Remember that? Anybody who had kids, your kids can memorize what words look like. So now you're thinking they're reading better, but really they just memorize the words. You got to switch the words out for words that are on a similar level so they can use their phonics. and sound out the words because you want them to know how to read, not be just memorize what the words look like. That's justifying. Same thing in math class. I need you to show me how you got this problem. A lot of us did math in our head. Still had to show you work. Because for a lot of us, as that formula got longer, as the math problems got a little bit more comprehensive, a little bit more rigorous, what happened? You may not be able to do them in your head at that point. So if you didn't know how to do the formulas, you utilize the formulas. If you didn't know how to do the math, you were going to be out of there. So your teacher protected you from your own self, your own gift of being able to do it in your head by saying, hey, look, that's cool, but the math will get more advanced than that. I'm going to need you to know how to do the math. You need to work this out. Order of operation, whatever it is, you got to figure it out. Same thing goes for this. You got to be explaining your point. Being opinionated at school, you got to be able to express your point in a mature way. If they're not getting it, they disagree, it may be you're not explaining your point right. That goes for everybody. It is better to debate an issue without settling it than to settle an issue without debating it. The man who presents his case first seems right until somebody comes and cross-examines them. To be open to cross-examination. A lot of times that when people call somebody opinionated, they're really saying this person has a lot of resolve about certain propositions, but they are obstinate, they're stubborn, they're easily offended, but they still want to impose what they think is true into the situation, and they want you to act in accordance with that without having explained it thoroughly or explained it in a compelling way without the assumption that they're right. So that's what's typically going on. So it depends what he means by opinion. Nothing wrong with being opinionated. Part of what some people lament about communication between people who are unreasonable, women in general, whether regardless of the color, and men can be like this too, is the fact that they don't explain themselves. They get overly invested into the result of the conversation, which is the result they want, instead of the process or the journey of the conversation. I need you to treat me with respect. I need you to listen to what I'm saying, listen to respond as I listen to, not listen to respond as I don't listen to respond. I listen to understand. Gain an understanding before you expect to be understood. These kind of principles right here will soften the blow of somebody expressing a potentially offensive disagreement with you, opinion with you. Another point that he made. Schultz shouldn't be in a position to say that. So when Schultz, and I want our audience to remember, we're talking about right now is a white comedian made comments about black women. They were talking about black women effect, where they get non-black men to dress better, have nicer hairdos and beards and all that kind of stuff. And so the comedian made a joke, was like, those guys got those beards because those women be hitting them, and they be arguing with them or whatever. Whatever he said. Some people didn't find that funny, which is okay. You don't have to find every joke funny. Some took it offensive. That's a bit of a stretch. He shouldn't be in a position to say that. Comedians are going to make jokes. That's their freedom of speech. They make fun of everybody. Whites, blacks, Indians, Asians, women, men, lesbian, gay, straight, whatever you want to say, they're going to make fun of it. You should show yourself to be a mature person by being not take yourself so seriously. You can laugh at yourself. When you can do that, people feel more comfortable around you. If you want people to treat you with kid gloves and, don't touch them because they're, are they strong? If they're strong, they can take criticism. They can take a joke. So you can't want to say they're strong and resilient, then say this joke is too much to bear. You got to pick one. You got to pick a side on that. I come from a line of women who are very funny, can take a joke with the best of them. Better than a lot of men that I know. Don't treat them with kid gloves. They're gonna be all right. Not a joke. Again, I already addressed this earlier. Them saying it wasn't a joke. A joke can be not. You can have a joke that's not funny, a joke that's funny. That's it. They're both jokes. The late, great Patrice O'Neal said this on Fox News because he made a joke that people found to be inappropriate. And whether you think it was inappropriate or not, he made a comment that was really good. A lot of comedians resonate with this. He says, good and bad jokes come from the same place. Even the guy on the show admits it. He goes, hey, look, part of being a comedian is pushing the boundaries on things. That's the reality of it. You push the boundaries on things. And so sometimes you may go too far. That's the reality. Those of us who speak for a living, whether you're in sales, you're a comedian, whatever it is, we push the boundaries on things. Sometimes we go too far to other people. Sometimes we didn't go far enough. That's the reality of it. Next point. This is what we get into when we got to start talking about these fallacies. Again, this show is about critical thinking. It's not a show of me just over here blabbering and saying things, expressing my opinion. It's about critical thinking and logic. It's about ethos as well as the logos. Being ethical, being fair, thinking about other people. So he said being raised by a black woman. And then Ryan Clark, I'll address both their comments at the same time because they're both going to their perspectives and experience with black women. Obviously, Andrew Schultz has probably, presumably been around Charlamagne's wife. He's been around black women before. So he says, if he has a black friend, get him around some black women, tell him about black women. As I've already said, he's already defended black women in a previous show where there's two black men who said they don't date black women. And he didn't find that to be a good response or a good perspective to have. He thought it was a little unfair, the way that they were depicting the black women. So in that sense, he defended them. Not just him, but other people he had on the show. So what you see is consistent is, as I said before, he's a mismatcher. You say something positive, he gonna make a joke a negative way. When those guys said something negative, he made jokes and non-jokes saying, no, I think you're missing the boat on this one. I don't think it's right for you to say those things. That being the case, goes back to human nature. People want there to be a balance. You're not so magical or your effect's not so great that you're above jokes. And if somebody's not so low that I'm going to let you just step on them, I'm going to defend them. That's what Andrew Schultz has displayed. Both sides of the pendulum. So that saying raised by black women, again, y'all, we got to understand what's called the anecdotal fallacy. Anecdotal fallacy. I don't know if you're there, Enos, or not. But I guess I'm assuming.
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Yeah?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. You gonna put the anecdotal fallacy up?
I'm on it right now.
So y'all, we're gonna put up the anecdotal fallacy. There's a few fallacies on here that we're gonna have to cover. Appeal to emotion fallacy, composition, division fallacy. Again, what is a fallacy? A fallacy is when somebody is using a line of reasoning that is invalid. It doesn't mean that whatever they believe is true or false. It just means that the form of argumentation they're using is invalid, meaning not logical, not reasonable. There are good ways to make a point and bad ways to make your point. And it's not based off how you feel. It's not based off who you are, what your station is in life, what culture you belong to. It's based off something outside of yourself, a rubric of reason and logic. It's got to make sense. So when these guys are going into anecdotes about how black women have been pillars in their life, as if they have been for me as well. I've had black women that were great to be around. I've had black women that were horrible to be around. I've had black men and white men and Asian men who were great to be around and ones that were not so great to be around. So somebody makes a joke about Asian men, I'm going to bring up a situation where Asian man, made my day. Am I going to laugh at the stereotype and move on with my life? You got it?
Yes, sir. Am I reading that?
I know. I thought I was time for me to take my sip. Okay. Anecdotal fallacy. You use the personal experience or an isolated example instead of a sound argument or compelling evidence to prove your point or to disqualify somebody else's point. It's often much easier for people to believe someone's testimony as opposed to understanding complex data and variation across a continuum. Quantitative scientific measures are almost always more accurate than personal perceptions and experiences. But our inclination is to believe that which is tangible to us and or the word of someone we trust over a more abstract statistical reality. So what that's basically saying is saying that it's so much easier. We tend to take the path of least resistance, aka we can be lazy intellectually at times. So if I don't have, in the absence of data and statistics, We're going to use what we can use, which is our personal experience. Nothing wrong with using our personal experience, but we got to make snap judgments. The issue is whenever you start to prove or disprove perspectives and opinions based off of your experience, your limited experience. You're one person out of over 8 billion people on this earth. Somebody might be like, hey, look, I love pigs. You know, every time I've been around a pig licks me on my face and tells me how beautiful I am. That doesn't mean every pig around the world is doing that. So if you were to say, I think pigs should be allowed everywhere, there's no safety concerns because I never had an issue with pigs before, that'd be a fallacious way of reasoning. You're choosing a lazy way out of using your limited experience. It's called the anecdotal fallacy, instead of taking into consideration that people might have experiences that are different than yours. Instead, it'd be better to do a study, a survey would be better, and even better than that, maybe do a study. So that's what the anecdotal fallacy is. These guys are using their own experience as proof that what Andrew Schultz said is negative towards black women, and he doesn't understand black women. That's not true. It's a joke. You go to any black comedian and listen to them do their comedy, they're going to clown everybody with all the stereotypes. I mean, how many times have we seen a black comedian and somebody's Middle Eastern in the crowd and they say, oh, you the bomb, or whatever they may say. Yeah. I'm not making no jokes at you, man. I don't want no problems. You think they can take that sensitively?
Yeah.
People losing their lives over stuff like that. Of course, they can take that the wrong way. And if they did, you'd understand why. But don't go to the comedy store. Don't be on a comedian's podcast if you don't want jokes, because you're sensitive. Mm. You want to be of the community, in the community, embraced by those that the community's pedestalized and put and celebrated. When in Rome, you got to do as. You don't got to go to Rome. But I do say all roads lead to Rome, but I'm not just joking. But so raised by a black woman. So that's the anecdotal fallacy right there. You can't use, just because you had great experiences with black women, like a lot of us has. I know Enos has specifically. We all had that. Doesn't mean that black woman ain't never robbed somebody, slapped somebody upside the head, cursed somebody out. Let's not play dumb. If you're going to tell the story, tell the whole story.
Tell the whole story. I want the truth. And when you said earlier, you said
mentally, tell the truth.
When you said mentally lazy, you brought up earlier, what was that? The confirmation bias. I wanted to go over that definition as well. Confirmation bias is not usually intentional. Meaning is the type of implicit bias, right? It's a natural tendency of the way people think. We tend to rely on shortcuts in our mental processing. It is just easier to do that in subjecting our views to contradictory information, which is discomfort. We yield to confirmation bias when reading about politics, such as when selecting articles to read on the internet. And I guess I just read one of the examples over here. Political news. Today, many news stations are expected to curate media that supports the political perspectives of news and organizations owners. I think that's important. You mentioned that earlier. As a culture, us Black people, I think sometimes we can be blinded by our confirmation bias, because any subjects that's pertaining to Black people, we tend to just whatever story that's, especially when it comes to us being victimized, we tend to just go along with that story instead of focusing on the full context of whatever we're reading or whatever we're hearing. Hey, you want to touch on that a little bit more?
No, sir.
All right. So, what was the other fallacy? What was it? Emotion? What, appeal to emotion?
I got on here appeal to emotion, and then the composition division fallacy.
There you go. Appeal to emotion. I'm gonna hop out if you want to go ahead and.
So the appeal to emotion. So what we're doing right here is I'm addressing the fact that when these guys start going into their personal experiences about dealing with Black women, right, which I found pretty heartwarming myself, it is in no way an indication that Andrew Schultz doesn't understand Black women or can't relate to Black women, or that his joke was inappropriate, because he is stepping on people who have done great things for this country and the civil rights struggle, social justice movements. The two are unrelated. For all you know, that Middle Eastern person that the Black comedians making fun of at the comedy store was somebody that helped, intelligence as a linguist or a translator during the War on Terror. I've listened to shows where guys like that were helping American soldiers in the war zones with translation and helping them to understand the culture so they can successfully complete their missions. That guy might be sitting in that club when the black comedian makes a joke about blowing some stuff up as a terrorist. They got family losing their lives over there in that country.
Yeah.
Do you feel
Oh,
that?
my bad. Hold on, I forgot that we got some comments. I forgot. Shout out to Help the Bed. What's up? Forgot to mention the comments, but continue, Bo.
That was the only comment we had?
Yeah, that's the only one right now.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, so again, people appeal to your emotion. That's a way of getting you off the topic. So this is what the appeal to emotion is. Again, this shows about being logical. The Vulcans were a logical people. We are called to be logical. Logical not has to do with doing the right things as far as how you reason through something, understanding the science of reason. It also do with your integrity as a human being, to do the right thing, to be fair, to not just choose to believe something because it benefits you or makes you feel better. You want to believe it because it's actually true. So appeal to emotion, you attempted to manipulate an emotional response in place of a valid or compelling argument. So when these guys are telling you about the grandma and all that kind of stuff like that, which I enjoyed those stories, by the way,
Yes, sir.
I can't let that sway me to their opinion. I can't assimilate or assume their position in the conversation, their perspective, just because of their heartwarming story. You can have a heartwarming story and be wrong. You got to make a better argument. They got to make better arguments for what they're saying. If they said you can't do that to our women, okay, who's going to be police on that? If everybody starts saying you can't do that to our women, what's going to happen? You have guys walking up on comedians, slapping them in the middle of their stand-up bit. Oh, wait, we already there.
Uh-oh.
Y'all, that ain't right. He apologized for that. He was wrong. For all of you who defended him and doing that kind of stuff and saying he was right, he said he was wrong. He just said that because of the pressure. Then he has no integrity. I feel like Tupac right now. How do you want it? How do you want it? Either he had no integrity, he's manipulating people with false apologies, or he really did mean what he said and he was wrong, and you were over there defending somebody who admitted, like, what I did was wrong. And my relationship with that person may be irreparable. Going back to the point, appeal to emotions.
That first line is so interesting too.
Sorry, say it again.
That first line, appeals to emotion, includes appeals to fear, envy, hatred, pity, pride, and more. That's deep. That's heavy, man. That's heavy.
It's important to note that sometimes a logically coherent argument may inspire emotion or have an emotional aspect, but the problem and fallacy occurs when emotion is used instead of a logical argument, or to obscure the fact that no compelling rational reason exists for one's position. So the thing about this right here, it's going to be hard to they're trying to make an argument as to why black women should not get made fun of.
Based on how they grew up with their mothers.
How they grew up and what they've done for this country. Then nobody should get made fun of. Then everybody has somebody in their people group that's done some stuff in the country. Most of all, white people. Why? They make up over 60% of the population. Just by sheer numbers, they do a lot more for the country. That's not getting into per capita and percentage and blah, 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 that kind of stuff right there. So anyway, let them say they're tough. He's saying let them speak for themselves. Let Andrew Schultz speak for himself. You talk about Andrew Schultz. Let him say that he was being insensitive. Let him say that he was putting black women in a disparaging light and wasn't just making a joke. You're speaking on his behalf. Why can't he speak on somebody else's behalf? Then we get into the N-word, B-word thing. This is more of an aside because it's not the purpose of the show necessarily, but he goes, just like when white people say, why can't I use the N-word if you use the N-word? That's a legitimate question. We got to get out of this mentality that we don't have to address certain questions.
He said that was BS. He didn't even address it. He said that's
He
BS.
didn't even address it, which we know is BS. Just because you're an echo chamber and people around you agree with you that it's BS doesn't mean it's actually BS. You have to come up with an argument why it's BS. I don't even know what you mean by BS. But, you know, as far as the conversation goes, are you saying that there's no good reasons? Are you saying that their intentions are foul when they're asking the question? How can you judge their intentions? They tell you, hey, my intentions are foul. Why can y'all use the N-word? Black people got to understand, and that one of the coolest words in the lexicon is the N-word, because the most popular form of music is replete with that word within the confines of its transcripts and lyrics. That being the case, people who are fans of that genre are going to want to say the words in the music. One of the most repetitive words in the hip hop is the N-word. That being the case, they want to know why they can't say it. Hey, if I don't have an ill will in my heart, why can't I say that word? If I'm saying it because my favorite musician, person I look up to the most in this world, is using that word in this particular song, why can't I say it? Some black folks don't even want you to say it in the privacy of your own home. Not all. Some don't want you to say it in the privacy of your own home. A victimless crime. Still can't say it. Now, do I feel uncomfortable when people that are non-black people say the N-word? Heck, I feel uncomfortable when anybody says the N-word, to be truthfully. I don't really like to use the word. Haven't really used it in a long time. Unless I'm quoting somebody or something. But I get the feel that that doesn't feel the same. Some of us have grown up around non-black people that were raised in our culture. The local color, the colloquialisms, they use a lot of the similar slang. Some of them even use the N-word. And I remember being from where I'm from, black people move from where they're from to come where I'm from, and they'll be like, y'all let them use the N-word here? Are you going to police all that? What's wrong with them saying the word? And they're like, no, they're not black. Saying they're not black can be the beginning of your argument, but you're not finished yet. You haven't really said anything yet. All you did was state what they're not. So you're gonna say they're not black, so therefore they can't say it. Okay, there's some hidden premise in here somewhere. What is them not being black not being the same word? Well, the historical context. Whatever they're gonna use. Then we get in that conversation. You will have to explain yourself. You're not getting out of this easy. You're not gonna be able to just huff and puff and threaten and assume people are gonna bow down to you. That only works for so long. The tough guys don't want to work for so long. I saw a quote that said, don't get loud, make better arguments. Mm-hmm. So what he's saying is BS. Okay, it's BS. Why is it BS? Or do you want us to have groupthink and just say it's BS because you said it's BS? You say it's BS, they say it's not BS. And they got a crowd of people that say it's not BS with them. Are we going to go by who has the biggest crowd? Explain why it's BS. Haven't heard it yet. He said excuses to be, this is Ryan Clark saying excuses to be disrespectful. I don't understand what he's mean by excuses to be disrespectful. The guy made a joke. You don't have to agree with the joke. You don't have to find the joke necessarily tasteful. He didn't make an excuse. People got to hear this. Even I remember when I was growing up, people say, "You're making excuses." Excuses is me asking to be excused from the consequences of my behavior for whatever reason. Andrew Schultz wasn't doing that. He was saying, I'll accept the full blunt of whatever y'all going to give to me for what I did, and I stand on it. Giving a justification is to make right. Excuse, say, hey, I want to be absolved. Or I'm asking you to lessen the blow. I don't want the full penalty for my actions. I'm asking you to excuse my behavior. I don't want any penalty, whatever degree of excuse they want to have. if somebody stands on it and explains why they did it, they could very well be not excusing themselves. They could be saying, and I stand on it. I'm justified. I mean, it's right. I'm making it right. I'm explaining to you why it's right that I did that, or at least that it's not wrong. So you got to keep that in mind when it comes to people talking about excuses. We tend to use words so loosely that we don't really understand what they mean. A lot of times when we have these cliches, we say them so much we don't even know what it means anymore. He says doesn't have the right, right, because he has a white wife. Y'all, that's called the genetic fallacy. Genetic fallacy. We getting that one up, Yes,
sir. Give me a few.
So the thing is when he's saying you have a white wife, you can't talk. Y'all, this is a recipe for disaster. Think about things outside of the race conversation. I make fun of Coca-Cola. Why you making fun of Coca-Cola? You have Pepsi in your fridge. People make jokes about redheads. People make jokes about people being short. People make jokes for all kinds of stuff. You see some about short kings and whatever. How you gonna call somebody a short king when your dad is 6'6", or your husband 6'6", or your boyfriend 6'6", or your brother 6'6"? Where is this gonna end? You got guys flipping tables over their height, getting mad because they're getting overlooked because of their stature. It's not funny to them all the time, and we tell them, "Hey, chill out. You're taking yourself too seriously." Yeah, life can suck sometimes, but you're at a comedy show. You're talking to a comedian. You're gonna make jokes. So, y'all, this is the genetic fallacy. You got to really understand this. This is a very common one. Right now, it's the Halloween season. You're gonna see a lot of genetic fallacies going into play. People saying you shouldn't celebrate this pagan holiday, or you shouldn't do this because of its origins, and this, and this, and this. All of this is linked to what's called the genetic fallacy. So the genetic fallacy, the description is basing the truth claim of an argument on the origin of its claims or premises. Premises. I say premises, don't I? Logical form. So logical form. The origin of the claim is presented. Therefore, the claim is true or false. So somebody will say, it came from this. So that means it's bad. So they gave an example, and because this one is such a prevalent fallacy, I really want to read the example. I don't read the example all the time, but I really want the audience to really glean from this and grasp this concept here. Lisa was brainwashed as a child into thinking that people are generally good. Therefore, people are not generally good. Just because somebody came to arrive at a certain idea for nefarious reasons, or whatever you want to say, does not mean that that particular belief that they have is false. Somebody can strap you down to a bed at 4 years old and tell you that 2 + 2 is 4. It doesn't follow that 2 + 2 is not 4 because somebody strapped you to a bed. You can't base the truth of a claim on its origin and ignore its current context and or meaning. So again, when he's saying he don't have a white wife, so he can't say anything, that's genetic fallacy. Wow. Now, if you want to say his experience with black women is more limited than mine, given the fact that he's not black, he didn't have a black wife, and he didn't grow up, and he didn't have a lot of exposure to a black context. That's a fair thing to say. You may be assuming that about him, but if what you're saying is true, it could be true that he has less experience than you. But less experience doesn't guarantee that he's wrong and you're right. People with more experience are wrong sometimes. So again, genetic fallacy. We got to be logical. We got to be fair-minded. Appreciate him standing up for us. He's talking about, you got to appreciate people standing up, people standing up for. I mean, I'm not knocking standing up for them. I think it's great if they want to give their anecdotal situations about black women that have done great things for them and the country at large. That's perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with a balance. Like I just got done saying, if I said something negative, say something positive. Andrew Schultz said something negative as a joke. What they do? They say something positive. That's how stuff goes. That's fair. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're gonna say don't talk about our women, people gonna talk about your women more. What happened? Will Smith did what he did to Chris Rock. What all the other comedians do to Will Smith and Jada Pinkett? They started cracking on him, jiving on him.
Yeah.
Depending upon what part of the country you in, you resonate with.
Them jokes got more intense.
Huh?
Them jokes got more intense.
Jokes got more intense. It's like somebody be like, hey, if y'all don't pick me up, you can't play with my ball.
Mm-hmm.
Now the next time you come out there with your ball, you're gonna be like, we're gonna bring another ball. Be like, we don't need to play with you now. We got our own ball. Sit over there by yourself. There's healthy ways to negotiate, and there's unhealthy ways to negotiate. If you coerce, if you try to intimidate, that's escalation of force starts. Now you gotta prove you bought that action. And as Deion Sanders said, his mom told him, son, there's always somebody out there badder than you. But truthfully, I'm more of the mind of Deion Sanders. He goes, but mama, somebody's got to be the baddest. So you better hope you're the baddest. So black women aren't violent. Obviously, again, saying Indian people, Asian people, black men, black women aren't violent. Black people we have a culture of violence. Make no mistake about that. The number one cause of death for me is homicide. So that's a real thing. Vulcan Soapbox. When he talks, also, I mentioned this on the show before. Out of heterosexual couples, gay couples, lesbian couples have the highest rates of domestic abuse. Those aren't all black women, but women can be violent just like men, and women includes black women too. So everybody can be violent, but just because they can be violent, I mean all of them are violent. Some people age out of violence. I'm sure people are more violent in their 20s than they are in their 30s and 40s. You can break it up by age, you can break it up by gender, you can break it up by race. There's data on this stuff about who's most violent at what points in time. That's the reality. We live in an age of information and technology. They're tallying everything. Every time somebody call the cops out, they're tallying it. Who did it? What happened? What's going on? It's not a perfect system either, but it don't gotta be perfect. It just gotta be more true than not. For people to make jokes and use stereotypes. So tell him about black women, upset and loud. So then Ryan Clark ends it with, to me, it's a very corny virtue signaling statement about like I was gonna take it a certain way, but then I would get loud and upset, and then I'll give him the joy of seeing me act as a stereotypical black man or whatever he said. Stop it. That's cap. One Andrew Schultz is above that. If you would have got, you're a football player, if you get mad and start beating your chest, you're gonna think he's playing football again. That's all it is. He got a retirement. We know how y'all get busy. That's fine. Y'all got paid to crack people's heads. Audience, be aware of CTE awareness. Tell the truth.
Tell the truth.
If you'd have got upset and loud about that because somebody made a joke of, at the expense of black women, that just means you soft. I spell it SOFT. I'm a man and I called you soft.
Tread lightly.
Soft. Anyways, for those of y'all seeing life, you get what I'm talking about. But yeah, getting loud about what that guy said would just make you look bad. Have a better argument. Don't get loud, make a better argument. You want to say something nice about black women like you did? You said you spoke eloquently, you expressed yourself about how black women have done all those things. I think that's great. People still gonna make fun of them. And we gonna make fun of you. Get over it. People gonna make fun of me. I've been on shows and they clown me. Look how big that boy head is. Look at that tight shirt he had on. How you gonna make fun of me? I could have did all that. Or I could have been like, that boy's wild. That one wasn't funny. That one was funny. Whatever. Don't take yourself so seriously. So that's what I got to say about what these guys said. Again, these guys aren't intellectuals. They're football players running the show. They're not dumb men either. I'm not saying just because they're not intellectuals, they're dumb. But the choice of word wasn't that great. And they don't understand the science of explanation, explanatory power, explanatory scope. Your explanation's got to be good. It's got to explain a lot of what we're seeing, a lot of the phenomena we're seeing in this situation. And it's got to be better explanations. And it's got to be explanation with the least amount of assumptions involved. This is the science of explaining something. Look it up when you get a chance, audience. Explanatory power, explanatory scope. We don't got to put that up. But everybody, you got to understand that's what we're dealing with right now. Sorry, so we're done with this right here. We're going to be going to we're done with this whole situation with Andrew Schultz, right, Enos?
Yeah, we done. Let's get a few comments.
Okay, let's go. Let's get it.
All right, so one of the comments, speaking of appeal to emotion, this made me cry. As a single mom, raising a young son and pushing him through college and giving him everything I got every single day. I'm glad someone sees Black women clearly and finally speaks the truth about us.
But see, again, y'all, we got to be fair. We got to be fair. This is called the taxi cab fallacy. You don't got to pull this one up either. Taxi cab fallacy is when you use a certain line of reasoning when, all the way up until it doesn't benefit you when you get off. So somebody be like, man, I can't stand people that interrupt. People that interrupt, they should just leave the conversation. They're disrespectful. They don't blah blah blah. Then you start talking, that person interrupts you. And you'd be like, yeah, I interrupted you. Oh, I interrupted you because that's something I got to say real quick. Well, hold on. I thought you just said people interrupt for this, and this. So interrupting is bad when it doesn't benefit them. The moment it benefits them or they do it, then it's like, oh, but this is different. That's also special pleading. Special pleading. This is the Vulcans out there. This is the science of logic and critical thinking and reasoning. This is more than about smarts. People hearing this, well, boy, smart. They know these terms. It's not about that. The
that
terms is that boy smart. That boy good.
That boy good.
It's about not being terrible as a person morally.
Yeah.
We learn these logical terms. You may not have learned the terms, but if you can recognize people being illogical and being fallacious when you hear it, it can help arm you and those you care about to know when they're hearing things that are not true. Or maybe it's true, but the arguments are bad. People trying to take advantage of you with good sounding eloquence. There's a lot of charming, bombastic speakers and orators. But just because they can sound good and make you levitate around the room with their amazing stories, their warm, heartfelt stories, their funny stories, their anecdotal situations, their experiences, doesn't mean what they're saying is true. So you got to learn some of these terms at least so you can arm yourself. Learn a term a year, whatever you got to do.
Yes, sir.
Start learning these things.
Definitely a show of empowerment so you can tell the difference between what's truth and what somebody just babbling.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. The next comment, they should speak up on the alarming amount of single-parent homes in the Black communities or increasing crime rates in Black communities or at high school, or the high school dropout rates in the Black communities. Second comment, please, this blank is so cringe. He's just a lapdog. Wow.
Yeah, I don't have too much to say about this one right here, but all I say is that, again, I'm assuming these people are in response to, again, look, this is y'all see the principle again right here. Mm-hmm. Ryan Clark, this is what happened. Some guy said something that people consider positive about Black women and how their effect is on the aesthetics of non-Black men. Andrew Schultz responds by saying something that leveling the playing field. Hey, look, they're just, it's not about them leveling these guys up. They just got these beards because they want to be able to resist the hit, which is a real thing. There's some signs that suggest, not with the Black women, but there's some signs that suggest that people that have beards were like descendants of warriors. So there is something about being hidden beards in there historically and maybe genetically, but we won't go into all that. It has nothing to do really with Black women, but it's an interesting fact. But going back into what he's talking about, he said something. You heard something positive, you heard something negative. Then you hear the guys on the Pivot Show say more positive. And then what this guy does in the comment, let's talk about the Black crime and the Black this and the Black this and the Black that. Some of y'all gonna hate and say that's so-and-so's talking points. Just because you don't like the fact he asked the question, I mean you shouldn't talk about it. Now you can say their motives are bad, but or you can say they're trying to bring balance. Again, if one group is gonna lift themselves up in front of everybody else, say, "Look at us, look how great we are," somebody else gonna be like, "Not impressed." Look at this. Look at this stuff. We missed the spot. So keep that in mind. That's human nature, right, wrong, and indifferent. I'd argue it's a neutral thing. It's not right or wrong. It just depends how you do it. But whether it's right or it's wrong, people are gonna do it if you putting yourself out there like that.
Good stuff. So next time we're gonna get into DJ Vlad.
I'm here to stand on my soapbox and proclaim that to the world.
On this show,